We'll call the city council work session to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Stringham. Here. Felder.
Here.
Hayter. Here. Stilgrave. Here. Vining.
Excused.
Germaine.
Here.
Mayor Clark.
Here. So we have a work session and we have one item, correct, Manager Robinson?
Yes, Your Honor.
So the way the agenda is set up, it takes public comment first. And then obviously this is a work session. Council doesn't make decisions, but we do give input to the topic after being presented. I'll start with any comments from those present here this evening. Yes, sir. Mindful of the rules of the chamber, 3 minutes in your jurisdiction of residence, please.
Thank you. Dale DeSlover, 211 North Macomb Street. I'm here to address the bicycle and pedestrian trail planning SEMCOG grant. Mayor and city council members. 3 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to walk across the Haypenny cast iron bridge. It is in Dublin, Ireland, and it crosses the River Liffey. It was opened in May of 1816. The bridge was built because somebody had a dream and a vision. It is about 141 foot long and 12 foot wide. I have a dream and I have a vision that a steel bridge will be built across the River Raisin. It will be about 300 foot long and about 12 foot wide. In the year 2134, hopefully Monroe's future residents will walk across the bridge and wonder how it came to be built. Well, hopefully history will say that on May 19th, 2025, the City of Monroe council members voted to start looking into the project. You might know that the county has virtually eliminated their planning department. So my ask is that they hire a temporary planner provided by the SEMCOG grant to put a river crossing bridge on paper. In 2006, Manick & Smith was hired by the county to put a trail plan on paper. Finally, in 2025, 19 years later, that plan has finally seen its completion. If the county votes on this, they will have the naming rights. It won't be the Haypenny Bridge, but it could be the Monroe County Bridge or the St. Antoine Bridge. The cemetery is right nearby. Or it could be the Commissioner's Bridge. Most of what you do in office will not be remembered. This bridge might be. I see in your regularly meeting agenda, you have something about the county voting to support the city in its underpass project. You could support the county in applying for this SEMCOG grant. I ask you for a yes vote to apply for the SEMCOG grant. Thank you for your time.
Other comments from those present here this evening? Seeing none. Clerk, next item.
The next item is the item under the work session agenda, item 5262, County of Monroe Planning Grant Letter of Support Request for Waterloo Park Bridge.
Thank you, Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor and Council. The whole idea of this bridge came to our attention probably about a month to a month and a half ago. And the planning department, Mr. Jason Berry, Ryan Simmons, had invited the mayor and Director Cochran to a Zoom meeting. It was the only meeting that they had regarding this, to a Zoom meeting to discuss the county's wish to put in for a SEMCOG planning grant in order to develop a plan to construct the bridge, which is basically would connect from Waterloo Park to our shores on the north side, in order to be a pedestrian and cycle park that would actually end up connecting to the Worrell Trail that runs along Elm Street or Custer. So I wasn't invited to this meeting, and I wasn't part of the meeting. However, in speaking with the mayor and speaking with Director Cochran, there was a lot of discussion about this at the meeting, and where it was kind of explained that, okay, this is a planning grant, and, you know, I believe from our side, I think Director Cochran explained that, you know, we're about year 3 out of our 6-year Parks and Trails plans, and we have our plans, and through our CIP process, et cetera, and which, you know, you've seen our work on our plans through the CIP. It was we did the Carnes Park reconditioning, which was one, and then we've also have plans for what's happening over at St. Mary's Park. And when we were looking through this wasn't really part of it wasn't part of our trails plan, or trails and parks commissions. And there was any outreach from the county to discuss those with those commissions to see if there was buy-in, or see if there was a potential for a consortium of partners who would be interested in this project. The deadline is pretty short for when they're looking for a letter of support, and this is for your discussion tonight, to see if we're willing to put in a letter of support for this project. And this is really for your discussion. Is this something that you would foresee, something that as a council you would be supportive of? And in your packet, we included the fact sheets that kind of explained everything I've kind of summarized real quickly here. But we're open to questions. I did send an invitation out to the planning folk over at the county with Jason Berry and Ryan Simmons. And I did receive a response from Mr. Berry that he was not able to make tonight's meeting. And you'll see the email that he sent back, which was his contribution to this meeting. And I have that for your thing. And I also included an email, because I had also, being it would be a public forum and an ability to discuss, I also did some outreach with Supervisor Manor in Monroe Charter Township, where actually Waterloo Park is located in, as well as Supervisor Van Washenova from Frenchtown. And I didn't receive a response back from Mr. Van Washenova, but I did receive a response back from John Mayer, which I also included in your packet for your review.
So before we start having discussion or comments, mindful that this is a work session, so decisions aren't made here. And obviously with the deadline, if depending where this goes, what alternatives there may be. I do want to make one correction. Actually, it's for myself, not Mr. Cochran, who did the fact sheet. I've been on the Zoom meetings, and I've been talking, I think, in other times at council. So I want to make sure it's clarified. In the fact sheet, in the last one, it talked about the deadline of the application, and it states about being on a quarterly basis. The planning assistance grants are annual, so they start and send them out in May. The committee meets in June. They set it for the year time frame for a planning grant. We all know this because we've had planning grants before, and it takes a year to get around to finish the project it may be. So it says does not accept applications, or says does accept applications on a quarterly basis. So I was inaccurate in that when I spoke about that. It's only annual on the planning assistance grants through SEMCOG. The TAP grants, which you've had also before, the transportation alternative plans, are now reviewed quarterly, but not these. So I just want to make sure I clarify that, make it clear for the record here in the meeting, because those that may not be here, that may have been in those other meetings I was on, I just make sure I want to correct myself. That is not Mr. Cochran's error. It is mine. That's why the fact sheet states that way. So that's where I wanted to start. So, anything further, or just?
Well, I'd just say in the review from those of you that were invited to the meeting and attended the meeting, that there were several questions that came to my mind as we were asking this. It's our understanding that Waterloo Park is only open for access, from April 1st through October 31st, so it's closed to users from November 1 to March 31st, and I don't know what the county's plans are for doing any of those changes, but I know that there were some also alternatives that were brought up at that meeting to where that there are other crossings of the river, and I know that was mentioned about Telegraph Road being a potential, working through MDOT, maybe reaching out as a consortium for a planning grant to try to add to the Telegraph Road to try to create a safer pedestrian and bike path to be able to cross a road at that location, but there's also crossings at Raisinville. There's also crossings at Rossler that from over the river that does connect to several trails. So I was just to point those out, that it just seemed like there was a lot of questions that came out of that meeting that maybe you found the same, but just from a feasibility standpoint and recognizing the large investment that it would take to complete a project like this, because at that point in the river, it's a lot wider than what even where our Martin Luther King pedestrian bridge is, that, there seemed to be a lot of questions, and there was an urgency, which I understand planning grant is only now once a year, but those are items that I had questions on that I don't believe we really received a lot of answer to some of those.
So for some additional information, because after the one meeting that Mr. Cochran and I were invited to sit on, and then I suggested that further correspondence that they include the city manager. There was a follow-up email from that. It was on April 28th. Mr. Simmons, Ryan Simmons had sent, and Manager Robinson sent back a response because it was about the request for a planning grant and the looking for and the information of how it was going to be funded by the county, but they were looking for letters of support. So Manager Robinson responded at that point as well. And I don't want to speak for the manager, I would say his email. Sorry, and he had a position that, further discussion and proposed participating jurisdictions should precede the grant application, basically. So it's here for council for any comments, questions, or input. Andrew?
Thank you, sir. I noticed in the letter that we received from Supervisor Manor, did they decline to provide, is it my understanding that Monroe Charter Township declined to provide a letter of support? Because this letter is talking about financial support, and my understanding is that there is no request to the city at this point in time for financial support of this project.
I'll say yes, that was clear in even the follow-up meeting they had with the Monroe County Bike and Ped Plan, it's clear in the correspondence that was sent as well, that I know everybody's received. But it's I'll say, can't speak for the township supervisor, but it's the follow-up. If you receive following a planning grant, then the idea is there's a submission for an alternative, a TAP grant, and there may be match grant for that if you're being considered as a partner. So I think he's looking long-term that their plans are not inclusive with this concept, nor would he be looking at supporting funding in the future. And of course, I've heard it's been discussed that there's grant funds out there, but we know with the TAP grants, there's match with that by the local jurisdictions. So, but I know what it says, or what you read. It was financial commitment, even in the future. So they chose not to write a letter.
Okay. Am I correct in assuming that a letter of support, if the city were to issue a letter of support, it would not financially obligate us towards this project moving forward? would we then be considered a partner and then be financially obligated to participate in this project?
I guess that's how you want to look at it, because some say there's no obligations, and I heard that on the there's no commitment or obligation. But I look at the process with SEMCOG for grants, and if you're writing for a planning grant, you could support it, or you could just, the county's going to do it, they could do it by themselves, which it appears they are, because they're going to submit it, whether they have letters of support, or they'll have to make that choice. But your question was about
Does this commit us to future financial obligations?
no, I guess that's, I guess it wouldn't. But to me, it's if you're writing letters of support, you're committing at least the city to, in my opinion, is you're committing to be a partner in the future. But everybody might have a different view on that.
Yeah, I'm a grant writer professionally. I've asked many entities for letters of support over the years. I can tell you that anytime I'm asking someone for financial support, that's a very different ask and may be followed up with, but is asked separately of any letter of support, which is just, yep, we're in support of this project. We appreciate the vision of this project, which isn't necessarily followed up by any formal partnership or obligation of financial agreement.
So I guess I kind of look at the submission is, it's a bridge across the river from a park, and the park's plans was sent to everybody. If you want to look at ours in relation to the townships in the county, is, I think you can say, well, what's the harm of go ahead and get in a plan? Well, when the plan's going to bring the bridge across to the World Trail, I have to think, how's that going to work? It's kind of narrow. I don't know if there's space, but I guess that's what a plan, I've heard, well, that's what a plan will tell you. So my thought, if you're submitting a letter of support for a plan that's going to bring a bridge across the river into the city, if you just want to say would support that, or you may not know. It's not in our plans. If it's something that comes to be done later, whether it's with or without this, are we going to change our plans for the next 3 years that we committed to for a 6-year plan for 6 parks? I look at it that way. It'd been nice to have a conversation ahead of time.
Yeah.
We could have had that dialogue. We could have found out, maybe found some additional information. And all that's being asked is for a letter of support. And I guess you could look at it and say the letter of support is by itself, and what's, it doesn't cost us anything, but you are putting your name to support a project that then later you may not. I think there's discussion. I'd like to have some discussion between the entities and how it came to be. Let me see if there's other comments, because I want to take all the time. Thoughts, comments? Michelle?
So essentially, this bridge would be connecting people from that side to the city, so it's going to affect our city regardless. So if we supported it, we're going to have to deal with whatever consequences would be coming across that bridge, however they come.
I know the idea and some are saying the concept's not a good idea. There's so much conversation that should be had. And as I think was in the information that was provided in the fact sheet, currently Waterloo Park is only open half of the year. Then we're going to have a bridge that's intended to connect the Waterloo Park to the World Trail, to the Loop Trail. But then on the other thought, if you're coming from the north side and going to the Waterloo Park, you can't go anywhere else unless you're going to walk where there's no sidewalks, and you have to cross M50. And I think as a city, we've thought about the Loop Trail, and we've talked about this recently with Winston Park. That we're going to connect to the Loop Trail through the W streets. Of course, anybody there from the Patterson and those in the township could access. Maybe they're going to do the same. I don't know what the township's plan is, but we want to connect as often as possible we can to the Loop Trail. So that's going to be, it's right there, because 7th Street's right behind the W streets. The manager mentioned, I thought about that. When we had our planning grant with Frenchtown, Charter Township, and Monroe Charter Township on the Telegraph Road corridor, in that plan, it talks about the improvements necessary for the Telegraph Road Bridge to make it more accessible for non-motorized. It's in that plan, and I think we have a plan already how to cross the river. It just doesn't connect to Waterloo Park. And that'll take MDOT, and I would hope MDOT, if we would submit something for that, that they would be coming to the table with funding to do that as well. It's not, you know, it is, I see people once in a while walking, but there's no barrier like we've done at all our bridges across the city to prevent somebody from falling off the curb, so to speak, or cars jumping the curb. So a barrier is probably more important there to me, and it would be far less cost than a bridge complete. I know that's not what this is. It is about what this is about for me, because you could say, well, just write a letter of support and then kind of forget about it. But then when it comes, what are we going to do? And we have alternatives already, I think, that are present. And if that's not getting done in the near future on Telegraph, the World Trail, then I know the Loop Trail is designed to come through the city to connect down to Sterling State Park. And you can do that and get back, or if you're not going all the way, you can get back to the Loop Trail by going to Rossler and crossing Front Street. And that's where the Loop Trail will be, right off of Kaylani. It's coming from Kaylani around to connect to the trail that we've committed to and received funding for the downtown trail from, I'll say, Union and Fifth Street in there. That's going to come down to the downtown. Now, how we get further from there, to the Sterling State Park is going to be decided as we figure ours. If not, you go down World Trail or down Elm to past the battlefield. So there's a way to get there without building a bridge to get back across the river to the Loop Trail. And I'll just add, it was been a few months. Engineering, Mr. Lewis is doing an analysis and a study of Rossler and West Front Street to see if there's turning mechanisms that need to be done there. And if we're doing that, we should, and I think we are asking about the pedestrian crossing as well, and if there's accommodations that need to be made. So I think there's a lot that's been done in relation to our thought process to get where we are in this request. I'm not saying it's a bad request, but it's the request, there's not the discussion like we're having or should have with our partners before we find that there's a approval for our next thing would be a TAP grant or funding for a bridge that then gets brought over to the World Trail. I've probably talked the most here. I want to hear if the other council members, because we can't make a decision, but the manager's going to take what he feels is the next step, whether we're ready, sending a letter of support or not. Other comments? Deb?
What's the purpose of, to have a bridge to go from Waterloo over to here? Is there enough people that are going to actually walk that bridge? Do we have an idea?
I don't have that answer. In fact, I think they're trying to make connectivity and make more people. I think it was one of the sessions they did analysis of number of people that could impact from city, the Frenchtown Township and Monroe Charter Township, and from an analysis, whether it was through SEMCOG or elsewhere, it's like 20,000 people. That's how many people live in the area. Whether they use it or not, I can't speak to that. I think there's many things that could be done preliminarily from all partners here. I mean, if you're going over to Waterloo Park from the north side, there's not a pathway to go elsewhere. There's not sidewalks. Now the school has a crossing, but that needs to be upgraded if you're going to talk about that kind of pedestrian traffic or bike traffic. And then of course, is it going to be open year round? Are we going to have a bridge in the winter that goes across there? Is it, I'm not going to get into who's going to maintain it and maintenance and stuff, but that comes later as well. Count, Michelle?
If we did not support it, the county is going to support it either way. They've approved it, so what happens if we did not support it?
Well, I think well, the county, at the last commissioners meeting, it was presented, and I was able to watch it afterwards because it's now virtual, which is a great thing. You can view it. They simply approved whether to go out for letters, requesting letters of support, and that's on their session tomorrow to make a final decision whether they're going to submit for a planning grant through SEMCOG. So I can't speak what they're going to do next. And they could submit it with or without whatever letters of support. I understand they may have some letters of support already from different entities, but they're asking the governmental jurisdictions. Thoughts, comments, questions? Kathy?
My thoughts, as much as it sounds like it would be a fun thing to add to, and connectivity, I also am thinking of how complex the whole project would be, and looking at the fact that we have kind of outlined, our plan, and so there would be quite a bit of trying to work it in, trying to take a left turn. How do you make changes? Connecting into Veterans Park, for example, I mean, you'd have to make some adjustments there. So it just feels like it's a lot bigger project than just the bridge that has to be considered. So I agree with you, Mayor, that there really needs to be a lot more conversation.
That was the correspondence that Manager Robbins sent back to the email that he received following the additional detail about the county is going to fund it, and also the fact that they're just looking for letters of support. What you said is what was sent by the manager. But in fairness, that part of that was also that, something that, the commissioners had their meeting to get to where they're going to have it on tomorrow's agenda, and as the manager and I talked, I said we should be afforded the same opportunity for the council to have input. And that gets to the fact that we have a pedestrian and trail committee that was set up specifically to give advice, and as an advisory committee to whether we should be what we do in our trails and movement forward. So, I mean, if nothing else, I'd like to hear what they have to say. And I know that's not going to happen timely, but that's why I wish there had been some dialogue earlier for the governors to sit and talk about. An example, I'm going to give a couple examples. If you recall, the Pleasance Road planning grant. Council approved that, worked with the Road Commission and Monroe Charter Township to develop a non-motorized pedestrian and bike plan for La Pleasance Road. That got submitted, but it was submitted with the intent that we're going to do something on La Pleasance Road. Not that we're going to hold on to see if we decide to do something later. We'd already decided. And I can't speak for Monroe Charter Township. I'm not saying they don't have a plan, but I know they're focused on other assets or access to the existing trails through their communities versus the main roads. But we approved a TAP grant and received for our La Pleasance and Jones Avenue. We've talked about that and the reconfiguration there because it's a truck item, but also a pedestrian mobility item. So we'll get ours completed first, and my hopes would be that when the township is able to look at La Pleasance Road, because there's other changes that are going to happen there all the way out to Bulls Harbor, that we have a non-motorized there. I think when we reviewed that TAP grant to begin with, we met at least 5 times before we submitted the grant. We met with the township, met with the road commission. Manikin Smith was the engineering group because it wasn't us. It was actually road commission, maybe the township submitted the grant, but, you know, and so there was the idea that we knew we were going to do something versus have a plan that we might do something with. And it took a year to get it, and we immediately wrote a TAP grant when it came back and talked about the feasibility. So I take that approach more so than about supporting a planning grant. Other comments? Mike? You had public comment time already. I'm sorry. We might take comments at the end.
So I'd just like to add that,
Like-
yeah, I think we will all be in favor of connecting neighborhoods and throughout our community, and we're definitely all in favor of trails. But I think, you know, what we went over tonight, it's kind of an incomplete plan. And so definitely, I agree with the mayor, we should, this is something that we need more information on. What are the plans for the park, keeping the park open? What are the plans for connecting the trails? So it'd be nice to hear those.
If the county moves forward and submits a planning grant and it comes back and they have and receive a plan of what it is and what it's going to cost, what it would take, obviously they're going to have to contact with the Monroe Charter Township in the city because that's the jurisdictions of where they're going to land. It is a county park, and so when we get that clear, it is one of the county parks. But then we'd have to figure, you know, is that something that's going to be it's not currently within our parks plan. Are we going to then embrace it if they get a funding to do it? They have to have support to do it. I mean, you're going to bring it over into the city, you know, unless they go over the road and go into Frenchtown. But I'm not saying that's probably what's being considered either. I understand when you have a plan, then you can understand what can or cannot be done, or what it's going to take to get something done. But it's not on our priority list. I mean, it's not anybody's priority list. It is within the county's plan as a note, but it's not listed as one of the priorities. But it's moved forward, and this is the space in which the county is currently in to move forward. Somebody else had a follow-up question. Andrew?
To clarify, this is a grant to get the engineering designs. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Creation of an engineering plan.
Yep. And then they talk about, we think about the Little Pleasance Road. It was an engineering design. It kind of laid out what it would look like. It was a separated path, yet there was shared use when we got into Bowles Harbor. The city was a pathway, but then it was shared use later. It figures all that out what will fit where. And, you know, it comes back with costs, you know, estimated costs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I look at our priorities, and it's not there currently. And then if the county decides to submit, they can do that. And then where do we put that within if we decide to? Would we then decide to change our plan to put that as a cost item within our current parks plan? We'd have to amend that and change it. I understand that's.
I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
If you have a plan and you're going to implement it, then you have to contact the partners that you'd need to implement the plan, and then I think there'll be match costs, but then we have to commit that we're going to change where it's going to land and the World Trail and what it's going to do, and I think that the potential there is other parks plans we have for the next 3 years. We may have to make a decision which one we might not do if there's a cost associated to it.
I think if there's a question of cost down the road, we can certainly have that discussion when it comes up. I don't think that's the discussion that we're having right now, though.
Right. So I guess that's the point is now the time to.
Yeah, but we're bringing up the point of what parks project don't we do? I don't know that we're having that discussion.
I'm thinking it might be if there's a plan that comes out within a year later, we'd have to make an adjustment. If it's 5 years later, we could plan for that. But that it gets my point is if we'd had the discussion ahead of time, we wouldn't be just making a decision whether we're at a letter of support. we'd be making a decision. I think it is a commitment that we write a letter of support. We should be willing to commit and say today, we're going to commit to this project if approved. If there's a plan that comes out, are we going to say, well, no, I'm glad you got a plan. We're not going to do that. We're not going to support it. Because I don't know what the outcome's going to be. I don't know what it's going to look like.
I understand, and it would have been nice to have been communicated with ahead of when we were communicated with. But
We had a presentation here before, so it's not the first time we've heard about it. But once it went, to a decision maker, besides a Zoom meeting, I think it would have been appropriate to have a meeting with the governing jurisdictions, like we did like the Road Commission, Monroe Charter Township, and the city did with La Pleasance Road. And I have other examples.
I think that some of the concerns that you bring up, Mr. Mayor, and that the city manager brings up in the correspondence with the county, I think that there's some legitimate concerns there that probably warrant more discussion. But also, with it being just an engineering design, I would anticipate that whatever comes back after the SEMCOG grant comes through would answer some of the questions that are being asked.
So would you forego the Telegraph Road planning grant that said we should cross the river there?
I would always support a pedestrian-only project as opposed to a pedestrian integration of a mixed-use pedestrian roadway project. All costs being similar, the problem is that the costs are not usually similar, but in this case, it looks like there's someone else who's willing to put up some of the money, which from our perspective makes that look a whole lot better, not worse. I can tell you that pedestrian bridge would be much closer to the precinct that I come from in my family than the Telegraph project, which would not serve us very well.
But it'd be close to the people who live in the 1st precinct and the 5th precinct. We can't look at things that way. We're here for the community as a whole. That's my view.
Yeah, I think looking at things holistically is good. I think that the close interaction that we have with the cars, and I know that we're proposing to alter the engineering to improve it and make it better, but I think that the Telegraph Road Bridge right now is used very infrequently by pedestrians and cyclists, specifically because of how inhospitable it is environmentally.
I agree. That's why it needs to be repaired.
Okay.
Other comments?
I would just,
Yeah.
we recently did just ask the county for $1 million,
Yeah.
one of our grants.
I don't know how that ties to this.
Okay.
So if we get a grant, we should then be turning around and giving something back?
I don't know that we're given much for getting $1 million.
I know it's not. I don't think we asked with the idea that and I wouldn't ask for something and expect something back.
Okay.
I think that if you want to talk about the underpass, that doesn't serve the city. It serves the communities as a whole. And then I think there'll be many people that do not live in the city that'll be using that underpass. Yeah. That's been an item that's been discussed with the jurisdictions prior to getting the letters of support. So,
And regarding that project, and I think that that's going to be a positive project. It's an expensive project, but I think it's going to be a positive project. But we knew at the time, as we talk about getting things in before the deadline, that project was not, we did not anticipate that project to be competitive long-term. We anticipated that because we were well-positioned to take advantage of the federal funds for the project, that we were going to be well-positioned early on.
because we had a plan.
Absolutely.
Okay.
But admittedly, that's not even the most severe case of, if we were to have a rail grade separation project anywhere in the city, I think it would probably be more appropriate in precinct 3 than where we have it. But we were more ready to move forward with it there, given the deadlines that we were under.
So I agree. But I think about that plan and what it does for the community as a whole. And I'm not sure that the current plan for the bridge before us for a decision whether we're going to rate letters of support. I can't speak what Waterloo Park's going to be like in the future, but maybe there's things we should be doing before we get to that point. I understand.
Yeah, I mean, I think the grant at this point in time, we're not talking about construction. We're not talking about moving forward or changing the engineering of North Custer. I think they're looking at is for an engineering plan. That's what we're talking about today, is an engineering plan.
And I think if we write a letter of support, then we're committing ourselves to being a partner in the future. That's the way I look at it. That's just my position. Some might say, no, that's not it. That it's no, and I know what they say. It's no commitment. It's no commitment. It's just the idea to have a plan. Everybody can look at it differently and say, no, I'll write you a letter of support, but don't ask me to support it in the future. I'll get it differently. Go ahead.
Isn't that kind of the same though as, okay, you helped me out yesterday with this, with our grant, but there's no expectation that I help you out in the future with your grant. There's no expectation of getting something in return. There's no expectation of future support, given we might experience new variables in the future like cost or engineering complexity or what have you.
In all due respect, you're tying it immediately to something that happened here that's even on our agenda this evening, as opposed to something that may happen in the future, that we should do it because of that. I guess I looked at it differently.
Okay.
So I'll see if there's other comments from the council. If there's support, then we should let the manager know, and it'll have to be a decision-making meeting.
And if I may, when we have the comparisons to the railroad underpass comparing to this project, I think you're comparing apples and oranges, because my personal opinion is, this underpass supports the county as much, if not more, than it does our own city. And because we respond to a lot of things that are out in that area from an emergency services standpoint. And like the point I made when I was speaking in front of the commission, we're asking the county to pay for 1/30 of the cost of this project. And with that project, I can guarantee you more than 1 out of every 30 cars is someone that lives outside of our city that resides in the county. And I think that is a regional benefit that the county should be a partner for us in a project like that, because it benefits the county just as much as it benefits the city. And I think that's ultimately why the commission made the decision that, yeah, we have a lot of benefit from the county, and we have a responsibility to those in the county and the region that we should be a partner in this. And that was something that there was vast conversation since the very onset with the county, and there was always the intention that they were going to be a partner in this and contributing to whatever kind of funding. But the lion's share of all of that was earned by our city and our economic development department and our grant writers and all those things. So just to draw that comparison, because I know I don't ever feel proper saying, hey, well, this is a quid pro quo. We're going to support this, but you're going to support. I don't like, let's look at each project as its own individual merit and what it does for our city and for our community. And I think that's important. Now, I think your point's well stated that this is just for a planning grant. And it's really up to, I'm trying to gauge the feelings of our council members in this meeting. Is this something that's worthy of us writing a support for? However, we have to know at some point in time, this is going to come back and there's going to be a decision upon council to have to make that decision of, okay, here's our plan, which you're going to hear our city and county parks plan here in just a few minutes, so that we can update all of you on what our parks plans are, what our city, the trails plans and all that stuff. So, because there's some council members that weren't here when that was devised. But I think it's really important, because someday it's going to come back to council and say, okay, we got this planning grant. We're now an expected partner in this plan. And this is the however many millions that this is going to cost. And are we willing to be part of that? And is the decision harder then? I don't know. I'm not, I don't think that them getting a planning grant 100% depends on they're receiving a support letter from us or not. But I just want council to have a thoughtful, because like I said, we were all kind of surprised by this, because we only heard of it a month or so ago. And, that's where we started to evaluate and what, I get it. There's only a planning grant applications, I guess now once a year. I understand that, but shouldn't there be some building of a consortium of partners to where everybody is, yes, let's do this, from all the partners who would be your potential partners from a financial standpoint? Is that there? And I don't see that being there at this point in time. And, that's just my opinion, but I'm looking for your guidance of whether we really, the whole part is whether we end up doing it or financing it later, whatever, is what is our opinion about giving the support letter?
That's what it's here for, and got off on the bridge, or I'm sorry, the underpass, but which I'm extremely grateful for the fact the county is supporting it because it does service all. That aside, so if there's managers looking for input, I think that the county may submit the grant as it is. And if it comes back, then we'll probably be asked again. But it's not about financial commitments, whether we want to support it. To me, if I'm going to support a planning grant, that tells me I'm going to support it in the future. And at this point, I can't do that because I don't know what it's going to be about. And I don't know, we haven't had the basic conversations of what the expectations will be. So that's where I'm at. If there's any desire for submitting the letter of support, then now's the time to let the manager know. But take, Andrew, that you do support it.
I would support us submitting a letter of support. I don't think it costs us much. If we find out new things later, we can have a different discussion.
Okay.
Would be a no vote on that.
Okay. So again, we're not casting, we're not, we're just trying to get a consensus. So if there's others that would support, then now's the time to let the manager know. If not, we'll go on to the rest of our presentation. All right.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Oh, Kathy, I'm sorry. Or then Dave, I'm sorry.
Is there a deadline on when they got to get this application submitted?
May 23rd.
May 23rd, okay.
Which is just, this
Friday?
week. Yeah. Kathy?
I feel like if we were to do the letter of support, then it does assume that we're supporting it long-term. And in the short term, I'm not sure that would fit into what we've already outlined. So that's where my hesitation comes from. Not that it wouldn't be great, and maybe down the road we could fit that in, but on the short term, I just don't see us being able to, with all the other things going on, being able to support actually the next step. And I don't want anyone to be misunderstanding our letter of support.
Okay. Mike, you had your question, right?
Yeah, well, just to add to that, yeah, I would be in support of the letter with more answers to the overall plan. We don't have those. And I get that the part of the process is getting the engineering, but I do believe there should be some more information shared with council before they make that decision.
So okay, so I think we're going to move on, but the process as is with SEMCOG is any jurisdiction can submit for a planning grant. It'll go to it goes to SEMCOG staff. They'll do an analysis. They'll do a recommendation or not. They'll have conversations with the applicant, and then it goes to what's called the Regional Review Committee. That committee as a whole can support the planning grant or not if the county submits it based on the information they have. And at the same time, that there's always different levels to that. Some they'll approve outright. Some they'll say conditional pending something additional. They might ask for information. They might ask for additional. They ask for a variety of things. And then sometimes they'll list those that are not funded at this time and they'll usually have a reason why. So that's how the regional review committee goes. They approve. There's conditional pending some additional information. Sometimes it's a right-of-way, sometimes it's, different things. That's more for a TAP grant, though. They may just want some additional information, or two, they'll tell them long-term, they need to do a different submission. So, but that's up to the county. If they approve, that's their choice to obviously send it, and then when it goes to SEMCOG, they'll get staff, they'll give response back. And then it'll go to the regional review committee. So it's possible it could go through, with or without. If there's final comments, I'm gonna go to Mr. Robinson so we can have the rest of our presentation.
Yes, sir. Well, I thought this was a good opportunity as we were talking about this, as we've had some turnover on our council. And I think that I asked Deputy Director Vanasacker to be able to present to you what our Parks and Trails plans are, because it's always good to get a refresher for those that were here when that were implemented. But I think it's good that we understand where we're at, because later on, this understanding could play into decisions that you make with whether you support certain things or other things that pop up that could make a factor in those decisions at a later time. But it's important, I think we all understand what our current parks and trails plans are.
Well, good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council, Clerk Treasurer Lavoy, Matt Vanasacker, Deputy Director of the Economic and Community Development Department and Neighborhood Services Coordinator for the city. Admittedly, a lot of the stuff that you've been discussing this evening is included within the presentation as items that are projects ongoing, and a lot of those key priorities that are established with the program. I don't know if it's popping up on that. I don't know if it timed out.
Well, it may have. I'm gonna turn it off and no.
My computer.
Okay.
He would tell me.
Yeah.
Things electric.
Well, while we're waiting for that, City Manager Robinson, I would come this evening and present a little bit. I staff the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trails Advisory Committee here for the city. Councilwoman Stringham was on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trails Committee before being promoted to the big leagues here. So she's familiar with a lot of what I will be going through this evening, but focusing primarily on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trails Plan that was implemented as part of the overall Parks and Recreation Master Plan in January of 2023. I was gonna say, if you want me, I can bring this over to you if it's easier to plug in. Oh yeah, it'll work. All right.
The television did go on the monitors.
Huh. There, that looks promising. Not yet. Looks like it's doing something though. Sometimes it just takes a second to
Then if it doesn't work, I'll just
warm up. Oh, there we go. All right. There we go. So a little bit of history just about this inclusion in the plan. Obviously, November of 2020, Roads and Trails millage was approved. That's what really kicked off the process of examining our bicycle pedestrian amenities that we have throughout the city, looking at areas for additional motorized and non-motorized transportation. January through December of 2022, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trails Plan was developed. In January 17th of 2023, it was adopted as part of the Parks, Trails, and Recreation Master Plan. This also included a recommitment and urging to recommit to complete streets policies here at the city, which I believe early in 2006, 2007, under Director Lewis's advising, the city did enter into a complete streets resolution, essentially saying that in all of our planning practices, we will focus on bicycle and pedestrian amenities as part of that process. April 25th of 2023, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trails Advisory Committee was reactivated. Manick & Smith Group was tasked. They were tapped to assist the committee, guide through with some more of the technical level to some of their conversations, and also guide throughout that process. They worked with us on the actual plan itself. So Lucy Fortin with Manick & Smith Group stayed on a contract basis to work with the committee moving forward. The committee meets monthly on the second Wednesday of every month. Would absolutely love to have folks out. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about the specifics of the group. April 21st, council reaffirmed their Complete Streets resolution. And then December of 2024, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trails Committee set in place their priorities. So after a year of evaluating the plan, looking at the feasibility of a number of the projects that were presented, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trails Committee laid out some priorities in each of the key priority areas that I'll go through. The goal of the plan was to focus on network development and connectivity, specifically regional connectivity. A lot of the stuff and a lot of the elements that SEMCOG looks for in a lot of their programming, as well as MDOT now is taking a very active look at this process. Focuses on connectivity throughout the region. So not just here within the city, but then also looking into some other of our neighboring townships, counties, and even the state of Ohio. Complete Streets, we touched on that. Regulations and enforcement, which you'll be seeing some of that coming with the zoning code updates next month. Education and encouragement, and funding and coordination, so laying out some planning in terms of the funding for the project. Started with a needs assessment. So evaluated all the existing sidewalks, bikeways, talked about the street network, talked about accessibility, any policies that were recommended that the city look at changing or updating. And then also one of the most influential portions of that plan is the online survey and the workshop and some of the results that came out of that. And a lot of really good data behind it. Opportunities for improvement as well. So with that, Manick & Smith Group laid out 6 areas for recommendations. The first one is on bike lanes and sidewalks, shared lanes, sidewalks, often referred to as share rows, on-street bike facilities and shared use pathways, paved shoulders and sidewalks, off-the-road shared use paths, and then other street corridors, which I believe we had touched on briefly here this evening. So getting into the actual plan itself, the recommendation for bike lanes and sidewalks stated that this is the preferred design treatment for Monroe's major street corridors. Priority for implementation should focus on sidewalk gaps that are located entirely within the city's jurisdiction. So some specific ones that were called out directly in the plan, North Dixie Highway, First Street, Jones Avenue, La Pleasance Road, Kentucky Avenue, and North Custer Road. So a number of those have already been starting to be implemented naturally or through planning processes. The multi-jurisdictional sidewalk gaps were also called out in the plan. So sidewalk gaps that will require additional coordination with Frenchtown Charter and Monroe Charter Townships. And we've started some of those conversations with the municipalities already. And then also buffered bike lanes with sidewalks. So not only were these areas that were called out specifically for a bike lane, but then also having a pedestrian amenity with it. If you look at the city of Monroe as a whole, we score very well when it comes to the walkability of our community. We've been really hitting a lot of the sidewalk gaps aggressively through the Roads and Trails millage, and then also through our sidewalk implementation program that Director Lewis heads up every year. And we're making some pretty tremendous headway in that regard. bicycle amenities and actual dedicated bike lanes, we still have quite a ways to go with a lot of that implementation. And you can see a couple of the examples for what some of these areas would look like here. And I think with a lot of our development projects and some of the other things, having that complete streets policy in place is really important because it makes us look at the broader picture instead of just looking at the development itself. And La Pleasance is on there as well. And you'll notice on your agenda this evening, there's a site plan approval for 1331 La Pleasance. Sidewalks were implemented in that, and we've encouraged the developer to look at implementing lanes. Shared lanes and sharrows. Where bike lanes are not feasible because of limited street widths, shared lanes in combination with sidewalks are recommended along the proposed corridors, and you can see a number of those. This is a little bit more feasible in our downtown areas, specifically First and Front Streets. When you're looking at East Noble, North Macomb, and we've already seen some great progress in this regard. The bike lanes that went in on North Macomb were a direct result of the plan itself being implemented. Looking at the next section, on-street bike facilities and shared use paths. This is where the path is required and strongly recommended to be a little bit larger than a standard sidewalk width. This is a minimum of 8 feet wide and proposed in combination with on-street bike facilities as well. So the thought is to get faster bicycle traffic away from pedestrians moving throughout the thoroughfares and corridors. So some of the recommended areas within the plan itself for this, Elm Avenue, which is just wide enough to incorporate lanes meeting the minimum standards. And that's an area that I believe is a little bit harder, and it's called out in the plan, a little bit harder to implement. And the plan recommends a piecemealed approach as you move through some of the larger institutional uses moving through the corridor. Another area is Rossler Street, which we talked about this evening, both south and north, to connect to the Loop Trail and the Monroe Greenway Trail that the city itself is working on, along the west side of Rossler from 5th Street to Elm Avenue as well. East Front Street along the Riverside from Murray Street to Winchester Street in accordance with the River Raisin Heritage Corridor East Master Plan. And I wanted to note too, you hear a lot of the recommendations that are being laid out in plans. I think the vast majority of the recommendations that came from this actually stemmed from some other plans that had been commissioned throughout the years prior. Paved shoulders and sidewalks. So paved shoulders combined with sidewalks are the preferred design treatment for Jones Avenue. So this is the primary one that is called out here. The design that you see on the screen, not far off with what's being proposed and being planned. And as the mayor had alluded to earlier, this was a planning assistance grant program that has transitioned now into a TAP grant. So it's we're very excited and very eager to move our process along, and our portion of that just seen as the connectivity opportunities with Monroe Charter Township through that area. Looking at the next item, off the road shared paths. So this is where it gets a little bit harder in terms of the planning, and when you operate in such a densely urban population as opposed to some of our neighboring jurisdictions, it's harder to find the space, right, for some of these larger programs. As you can see, the Monroe Loop Greenway Trail was specifically called out as a recommendation. We were able to receive a Spark grant. Design development, we're aiming for an August 2025 bid on that project. We are wrapping up some of the easement agreements now and hoping to have that all buttoned up here as we move into June. And Manikin Smith Group is working with us on this project and working hard toward final design hoping for a spring 2026 construction period for that. And you can see kind of a proposed look at what that trail would look like, and it's starting to certainly become more real. And then the last section, I'm sorry, actually on this section as well, a couple key items to point out are the continuation of looking at our trails within Munson Park and focusing on those. You'll note that in the capital improvements program, we have been setting aside some funding to pair with the roads and trails millage to make some more accessible pathways back to the wooden trails in particular. Knowing that people still like natural trails and a lot of people are gravitated toward our trails for that, but making sure that everyone's able to get back to the trail itself. If you recall, right now it's a grass area, and so creating some more consistency there. And then also called out within this section would be a shared use path from the south side of the River Raisin, from Monroe Park along the river under Telegraph Road to the east side of Telegraph Road. So that Monroe Park is called out in the capital improvements program, I believe for a 2028 implementation. We actually had switched Monroe Park with Munson Park in the capital improvements program. Other street corridors, and talked a little bit about this with Telegraph Road and some of the recommendations there. Additionally, in this section, Monroe Street was called out. The proposed and potential for some bike lanes along Monroe Street through a road diet. Also, South Custer Road, and South Custer Road will come up a little bit more in the conversation. It's an area where there are some pretty noticeable islands from a sidewalk and bicycle standpoint along South Custer. There's some grading concerns, but then also it's multi-jurisdictional. So working through some of those items, but they're called out specifically in the other street corridors section. So overall, comprehensively, this map is included within the plan. It shows the regional connectivity. It shows where some of the existing infrastructure is, and then also shows where some of the proposed would go in to fill some of the gaps. And now I want to touch on the advisory committee. So the purpose of the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trails Advisory Committee is to monitor and facilitate the implementation of the goals and objectives within the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trails Master Plan, adopted by the Monroe City Council in January of 2023. And I really do want to give them so much praise for the work that they've done throughout the past year and a half, going through this plan diligently and looking at the city. Lucy Fortin with Manic Smith Group broke the city down into six areas, and each meeting throughout 2024, the committee took one area and focused specifically on it and evaluated all of the sidewalk amenities, the bicycle pathways, and areas that we need to look for areas of improvement. So I really do want to give them kudos for that. The first section and the first basis of their what we had them do was they provided recommendations to City Council, and we've shared these with Director Lewis as well, and evaluating feasibility on some of these options. But I did want to list these for you tonight, just given the fact that the topic was relevant. For sidewalks, Huber Drive was listed as one of their top priorities. Right now, if you recall, sidewalks are non-existent on Huber Drive, even though some of the driveways were set up originally for them, but trees were planted in the way of where you can. It's really interesting if you check it out. North Monroe Street to Walgreens in partnership with Frenchtown Charter Township. This one's in progress. This is the S streets, the commonly referred to term. So that project is ongoing and hoping for completion this summer. Telegraph Road from Eaton to Stewart in partnership with Frenchtown Charter Township. and then South Custer Road from Her to Telegraph in partnership with Monroe Charter Township. The second section, shared use pathways, West Elm Street from Bentley to Rossler. The action there would be to widen that to 8 feet. Front Street from Murray to Winchester, and then the Monroe Loop Greenway Trail, which is in progress, as we had mentioned. Section 3, dedicated bike lanes. The committee advocated originally for the North Macomb Street bike lanes. If you recall, they did submit a letter of action when that was up for a vote last year. That project has been completed. West Front Street from Telegraph to First Street, South Macomb Street from First Street to Elm Avenue, First Street from South Macomb Street to Winchester Street, Rossler Street from Fifth Street to Elm Street, and then Elm Avenue from Custer Drive to North Dixie Highway. Section 4 was Sharrows, and the final section, Sharrows, Front Street from Harrison to Murray, Scott from First to Front, and then First Street from Harrison to Macomb. So those were the bulk of the priorities, and they did, the Bicycle and Pedestrian Trails Committee did make motions to offer those up. There are a number of additional that are in the plan itself. I won't bore you with going through all of those here this evening. Time is short, but I did want to just highlight on this page all of the activities that are currently progressing per plan recommendations that we have in the city of Monroe, specifically pertaining to bicycle and pedestrian trails at this point in time. One of the really cool things that I wanted to highlight too is part of the advisory committee's role within the city is advising on promotional and educational material. And so the Bicycle Pedestrian Trails Committee, they've been out at the summer concert series in the park. They've been instrumental in some of the crosswalk painting and the murals that are planned here this summer. And they also offer up some really great material for the newsletter and for social media in terms of safety notes and things that would be great to share with the community. So really can't give them enough credit for a lot of the action that they have. Another item on your agenda tonight is pedestrian crossing signalization. A lot of those items that this committee has been advocating for. And with that, that wraps up my portion of the presentation. But if there's any other questions, always happy to stick around and answer.
Questions for Matt or about the presentation? Kathy?
What is the latest research that the committee has done on the e-bikes? Has there been any conversation further?
Yes. So there has been conversation further. We did invite members of Commander Wall with the Public Safety Department out to discuss it a little bit more as well. Just obviously given the fact that it is this time of year, but you're also seeing more people that are utilizing e-bikes. Currently within the state of Michigan, the state has some regulations surrounding the speed of e-bikes and locations where they can be used. I believe within the city, we have the language in our park rules that state that they're not to be used on any of our trail networks. So it's a matter of mixing a recommendation in terms of regulation versus enforcement and practicality with the enforcement. So, having someone sitting out on the trail to monitor use, for the occasional, it may not ultimately be the right thing. I know the committee has invited Mr. Buds as well to their next meeting just to chat a little bit through some of the other potential options that they may have.
Yeah, that's a great question, because I think that e-bikes and then, of course, sidewalk use, and it's really going to be an educational process because people are obtaining them, they're utilizing them, and they're just going. And on the other hand, I've seen some that are using with the traffic. They're abiding by the lights and the stop signs, and there's 3 different styles, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. That's according to speed in which they can traverse. And so it's something that will come to us here. I think some time soon from the
Yeah.
committee of how do we manage it? I don't want to say restrict it. How do we manage it? How do we make it work so people that might be the only mode of transportation
Mhm.
and getting to work, and how do we make sure they can get there and get there safely?
Right.
That's really I think there's many streets and not just the downtown, but the downtown might be the challenge, but but it's going to be educational too for drivers. You have to show the road.
Right.
And, but at the same time, everybody has to obey the traffic laws too. So it's encouraging to see because people are either using them for recreation, but they're also trying to get somewhere that hopefully is, many times is work, I should say. It's a great question.
Absolutely.
Andrew, I'm sorry.
Yep. Matt, you had mentioned pedestrian signaling. Where exactly are those going to be installed?
I know that there's one proposed at the entrance of the Cranbrook neighborhood there along, I believe it's West Elm Street. I'm not sure the specific locations of the other six or the other five, I should say, off the top of my head. But I'm sure tonight we can get that question answered from Director Lewis.
Yep, because the push buttons with the flashers.
Yes,
is that what-
flashing pedestrian signals.
'Cause I know that when Director Lewis was in here, when we redid Elm, we had a discussion at that time about pedestrian signaling because we removed the pedestrian refuge islands. We're still waiting. So, not to be pushy.
I know everyone's very excited to
Yeah.
see that this is
Good.
coming
I'm
to
glad hear
fruition.
that. I'm glad to hear that.
Tonight is the crossing there that you're speaking about by Veterans Park. Then there's Third in Kentucky, and the other one is on West Elm. Yeah, which is great. Other questions for Matt? Andrew?
I recently received an inquiry from a resident about, when's the next Parks Committee meeting?
Oh, nice.
And I'm like, well, there isn't a Parks Committee meeting. The Parks Committee was disbanded several years ago. Who votes on, at this point, if there was citizens, where should we direct them to? If they have comments regarding the master plan, did another committee take over those duties, or how would someone get involved?
Yeah, so in terms of bicycle and pedestrian amenities, obviously that committee. But any issues or concerns or anything can be referred to our department, and we can filter those through. Typically, we bring some of those items to city council if there's any specific concerns.
Okay, other questions? Yeah,
If I may, just one more.
We still have some.
At the beginning of the presentation, you talked about the walkability scores in the city of Monroe.
Yes.
You said that they were very good.
Yes.
That surprises me.
Yeah.
It does not match. Would you be able to send the council
Yes, absolutely.
the scores and the sources
Yes.
that they came? I know I've
Yeah.
examined other sources and came up with different conclusions about the walkability scores in terms of connectivity between
Yes.
residential and commercial districts.
Yep. SEMCOG actually, they just came out with a really good digital map. I could send out the
would be
link
tremendous.
for everyone. But then also too, we hear it for residential housing projects. So folks that are looking at developing residential housing, if they're utilizing some state funded programs and that sort of thing, walkability and access to some of the other amenities that you would find are scored very highly. And so a lot of our sites get graded pretty high up. But, yeah.
I see no others.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Yeah.
So we got 10 minutes and we'll adjourn and then the council meeting start in 10 minutes. Very good. And thank you all. Call the city council meeting to order. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Stringham?
Here.
Felder?
Here.
Hader?
Here.
Stillgrave? Vining?
Excused.
Germaine?
Here.
Mayor Clark?
Here. Ask we all please rise for invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Guide us in our deliberations and discussions this evening. May our efforts promote the good of the residents of this city and all who visit.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Clerk, next item, please.
Item is the approval of the regular agenda.
Manager Robinson, any amendments to the agenda?
I don't have amendments to anything on the agenda, but I will have something in the consent agenda portion.
Okay. So no changes on the agenda, correct? Is it?
That's correct.
Okay, very well. Clerk, next item.
The next item is the consent agenda, and for approval of payments to vendors, item B, the amount should read $1,472,609.81, 1472609.81.
Thank you. Are there any items on the consent agenda, council or management wish to have pulled for further discussion?
Item.
Okay, Manager Robinson.
I'm requesting that we pull item 5270 to add an action change, to add it to the action agenda, because I'd like to change the motion to approve a full purchase price of the item.
So item 5270 to go to the council action.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Other items on the agenda that council may wish, I'm sorry, on the consent agenda that council wishes to pull for further discussion? Any items on the consent agenda, those present here this evening wish to have pulled for further discussion? That would be put under the council action if you had an item that you wanted to have comment on or clarity. Seeing none. Councilman Felder?
I'd like to make a motion that all items on the consent agenda be accepted. I'm sorry, all items on the consent agenda except those pulled for further discussion be accepted. Recommendations carried out and resolutions adopted.
Motion by Councilman Felder, supported by Councilman Hader, that all items on the consent agenda that, absent those that were pulled for further discussion, be accepted, placed on file, recommendations carried out, resolutions adopted. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Stringham?
Yes.
Felder? Hader? Yes. Stillgrave?
Yes.
Germaine?
Yes.
Mayor Clark? Then there is nothing under presentations, communications, or public hearings, so we will move to council action. Item 5264, commitment agreement with Monroe County West Elm Rail Underpass Project.
Thank you. Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor, the reason I put this on council agenda is I believe that we had mentioned it, I had mentioned it in my comments at a previous meeting. However, I did appear before the Monroe County Board of Commissioners in seeking their assistance and partnership in the West Rail Underpass project, with helping us with the local match. And they did agree to commit $1 million towards the local match for the federal FRA grant received for that project. And I'm seeking, I'm requesting City Council to accept this commitment letter, agreeing and allowing me to sign on part of the city.
Any questions or comments from council? If none, motion would be in order.
I'll make a motion.
Councilwoman Stillgrave?
Move to accept the Monroe County Board of Commissioners letter of commitment for West Elm Rail Underpass Project Agreement, allowing the city manager to sign on behalf of the city.
By Councilwoman Stillgrave, supported by Councilwoman Stringham on item 5264, the commitment agreement with Monroe County regarding the West Elm Rail Underpass Project. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Stringham? Yes. Felder? Yes. Hader?
Yes.
Stillgrave?
Yes.
Germaine?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Next item, please.
Next item is 5263, case number D 25-002, determination of similar use for 437 North Monroe Street.
Manager Robinson, any comments?
Yes, Your Honor, and I'd like to relay a comment that I did receive. I know obviously she can't vote, but she wanted to, Councilwoman Vining did say that she's supportive of this project, as she sees that there's a need for this type of education to be done within our city, as there is a need for nurses, et cetera. She asked that I pass that along at the meeting during the discussion. But other than that, it's a request from Tamara Bibb for a determination of similar use for the United Nurses in Adult Education Healthcare at 437 North Monroe Street. And if there's any questions, we have Deputy Director Vanasacker, who worked hard on this and took this in front of the Citizens Planning Commission on May 12th. And there was a recommendation from the Citizens Planning Commission to determine similar use to schools K through 12 as an educational entity, and they're seeking council support.
Thank you. Any questions? Councilman Hayter? Oh, no, any
I was going to
questions?
make a motion to, so go
Okay.
ahead.
Councilman
Go right
Hayter?
ahead.
Make a motion to move to approve the termination of similar use application from Tamara Bibb for the use school K-12 for proposed nursing school to be located at 437 North Monroe Street, parcel 69-01-380-000.
Support.
Motion by Councilman Hayter, supported by Councilwoman Germain on 5263, case D 25-002, determination of similar use for 437 North Monroe Street. Clerk, please call the roll.
Graham? Yes. Felder? Yes. Hayter?
Yes.
Stillgrave?
Yes.
Germaini?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Clerk, next item, please.
Is 5265, case number PUD 24-001, 1331 La Pleasance Street, PUD final plan review.
Manager Robinson?
Your Honor, I'd like to ask Deputy Director Vanasacker, as this one takes a little deeper explanation of how this came to be, to further introduce and explain this item.
Thank you, Manager Robinson, Honorable Mayor, City Council, Clerk Treasurer Lavoie, Matt Vanasacker, Deputy Director of the Economic and Community Development Department and Neighborhood Services Coordinator for the city. So with every planned unit development case, we have you review a preliminary site plan, and public hearings are held at that point in time to go through and hear and listen to all the comments that are out there for the project. And then it sets a clock in motion for a 2-year period. And so as such, 1331 La Pleasance Road is coming to us this evening for a final site plan approval because they're ready to get started, which is great to hear. We're very excited about this project. We worked extensively with the developer. They're doing 13 single-family homes now. They were originally planning to do 14. Some drainage concerns within the site warranted that. Obviously, it's a fairly small site. But we've worked with them extensively on some of their exterior elevations, architectural styles, pedestrian amenities, you name it. The only item that is outstanding is, given its location, we are requesting Monroe County Road Commission approval, and they're waiting on that final approval letter to come in, or any other comments that may be setting forth.
Any questions for Mr. Vanasacker? I'm just going to make a quick comment. I want to say thanks to the work of the plant or development department, because this particular site, I think maybe the second or third time through some rendering that's come to council in the past years. One was pre-COVID, and things changed, and then they still came back with some thoughts, and now the final. So it's good to see that housing that corner section there at La Pleasance and Kentucky is going to get built for houses that we all know that we're looking to have increased here in the community. If there's any other questions, Councilwoman Germaini.
Thank you, Your Honor. Move to approve the final PUD site plan for 1331 La Pleasance Road, conditioned upon Monroe County Road Commission approval and executed amendment to the existing PUD agreement.
Second.
Motion by Councilwoman Jermaine, supported by Councilman Felder on item 5265, case PUD 24-001, 1331 La Pleasance Road, final plan review. Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Stringham? Yes. Felder? Yes. Hayter?
Yes.
Stilgrave?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
The next item is 5261, purchase of flashing crosswalk protection systems.
Manager Robinson, anything further on this?
No, Your Honor, other than this is the flashing crosswalk protection systems that we looked at. And I know that we have been, there was a lot of discussion about these within our DPS because obviously these are not cheap items and they were trying to figure a way to kind of maybe mix and match certain things. But I think between the Department of Public Safety and the Public Services Department here, I think that they came up with the best item here. And I think it's really, the solar powered, and there was pictures that was attached in your packet that I think they're really going to add to pedestrian safety. And I'm excited to get these things ordered and get them put in.
Questions or comments from council? Councilwoman Stringham?
Motion, move that the purchase of 6 flashing crosswalk protection systems be authorized to AO Industrial Supply in the amount of up to $48,000, that the Director of Engineering and Public Services be authorized to enter a purchase order for the above, and that the formal competitive bidding process be waived.
Councilwoman Stringham, supported by Councilman Hayter on item 5261, purchase of flashing crosswalk protection systems. Clerk, please call the roll.
Stringham? Yes. Felder? Yes. Hayter? Yes. Stilgrave?
Yes.
Jermaine?
Yes.
Mayor Clark?
Yes. Next item, please.
Was from the consent agenda. Item 5270, deposit for police office furniture from CIP 2526.
Manager Robinson.
Yes, Your Honor, I pulled this item because originally we had asked for the deposit for the police office furniture that was approved through our CIP program, but we originally were looking for the 50% deposit, which would have been $60,000. However, in dealing with the vendor, we learned that in several days from now, because of federal tariff stuff, et cetera, and where they receive some of their stuff, there would be an added surcharge if we didn't order before this date. So I'm asking council to actually approve for the purchase order for the entire amount of $120,631.24 for this procurement, although we would probably only be given the 50% deposit at this point, but later on we would pay the rest after receipt, et cetera.
Question for Manager Robinson on this item. I just have a comment, and then I'll see what council's thoughts are on as far as a motion. So when I saw this item, we know that our police department sits within the sheriff's department building. We've had conversation about our police department. We have a new fire station and what the future might bring. So my thought about that, we're purchasing furniture, but as we would expect, it's adaptable to other room locations. It's something that is not going to be, whether we're sitting where we are today within the sheriff's building, or if they do any type of reconfiguration, it's the type of office equipment that is compatible to different configurations. So that was one question I had, and that it would still be practical in use as if we moved. So just wanted to share that as an item, since it is a good purchase, and obviously it's been a while since they've had this. So any questions from council or comments? If not, it's up for action. Councilman Stilgrave.
So we're gonna make the motion to approve the full payment of 120?
The purchase order amount of
Purchase order amount?
of $120,631.24.
Okay, so we're gonna move to approve the purchase amount of $120,631.24.
That's correct.
for the police department office furniture approved in the 2025-26 capital improvement program budget.
Support.
It's a motion by Councilwoman Steelgrace, supported by Councilman Hayter regarding item 5270 in the Police Department office furniture for the amount stated. Final comments? Clerk, please call the roll.
Councilperson Stringham? Yes. Felder? Hayter? Stillgrave?
Yes.
Jermaine? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Yes.
I have no further items.
Further? Still may. Councilwoman Stringham?
I have two items I wanted to mention. Memorial Day is coming up, and coming from a military family myself, I would like to encourage everyone to participate and come out and honor the sacrifices that our men and women in uniform have done to keep us safe. And so there's several opportunities around the city, but we do have the Memorial Day Parade at 2 o'clock. And then the other item that I just want to mention, I'm excited that the concert series is starting. So Thursday, we start off with the Monroe High School Jazz Band and continues every Thursday, almost every Thursday. So just excited that we were able, for the city to be able to offer such great entertainment, things to do for our citizens and the community around.
Councilman Felder?
Thank you, sir. Near the end of school, my thoughts are with all the families who are struggling to get through day by day as we near the end, and all the teachers who are pulling extra hours to get the grades in on time and make it all happen. It can be a very stressful time of year. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilman Hayter?
Thank you, Your Honor. First, I would like to congratulate Joe's ALCC Boxing Club. Coach Riggs took 12 fighters to the Detroit Golden Gloves a couple weeks ago. They walked out with 6 Golden Gloves champions and 2 second-place finishers. And coming up on May 31st, he will be taking those same 12 fighters to the Junior Olympic State Championships in Ann Arbor. So if you get a chance, go out and check them out. I want to congratulate the MCOP on their 60th anniversary gala. Wonderful event Friday night. And I want to thank Councilwoman Stillgrave for inviting me to sit at her table. It was a great event, and it was wonderful to see not only the things that they do, but also the stories that people told, and congratulate them, the staff, but also their volunteers. So a lot of good things going on down there. And then lastly, I want to mention again that the Monroe Lenawee AFL-CIO is doing a home renovation for one lucky homeowner or family. You can be from Monroe or Lenawee County. If you want to go on the Monroe Lenawee AFL-CIO Facebook page, you can register. So if you know somebody that's in need of possibly a new furnace, new hot water heater, roof, siding, what we're willing to do is unlimited, what we can afford. So if you know somebody that's in need, please have them get on there and fill out the application, because at the last count, we didn't have a single person yet fill out that application. Thank you.
You probably have many after tonight, I can tell you that. I see people shaking their head and saying yes. Councilwoman Stillgrave?
I'm excited too for the concert series. I attend almost all of them. And also the Memorial Day parade, I'll be there as well. And MCOP was a great event the other night, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Jermaine?
Thank you. I want to congratulate all the graduates, high school, college, preschool, all the kids that are getting out of school. And with that, and the concert series, be mindful of the stanchions that we have throughout the city to stop when the pedestrian is walking across. There's a couple that are missing on Front Street and First Street. And just be mindful of the law and respect the kids and everybody that's outside walking and walking from parking lot. And we have a social district now, so if you're traveling at night, just watch out for everybody. That's all, Your Honor.
Thank you. I just have a couple items in review. Actually, there's been the last couple of weeks, there's been much going on within the city and partnerships that we've had. I'm going to start with Monroe Public Schools. They had their kindness walk, which was in Lawrenceur Square, and it was a route. If you have not attended that in the past, please put it on your calendar for next year. It's really giving education about not just kindness, empathy, but just how we can work together as a community, and how if you have an understanding of the person you're speaking with, you might have a better understanding of how you communicate in the future and how you take that into consideration. It was a great event. It was in the morning on last Saturday, but I know they'll have it again. So I want to share that. I don't think there's probably anybody that didn't see a Model A car going down the street here over Friday and Saturday last week, because they were at the battlefield for their opening ceremony. Then they had a dinner down at Leroy's Hall, and there had to be 80 Model A's. It was just all packed within the parking lot. It's just a lot of comments we've received that were favorable. Yesterday there was a dedication of a military marker at our historic Woodland Cemetery, and Private Aaron Bromley, who was served with the 102nd Colored Infantry Division in Civil War, did not have a marker. And Austin Engel, a young man, he's 16, and he did the work, wrote some information, took him a couple times. They had the military marker was placed. They had a dedication ceremony yesterday. It was fabulous. So, and our cemetery is prepared for Memorial Day. Thanks to those that have helped. Clerk Lavoie is one, and others. We walk and put flags within the cemetery to on all the veterans, and Ranger Robinson as well. A couple items that were on the agenda, I just want to make a comment to, because in the first of, I say the West Elm Rail Underpass project. It's been a long discussion in our communities and across the county, how, there's not many places you can go east-west and find yourself trying to get without being stopped. So this will be, there's a few locations probably, but this will be the only one that has an under rail separation, other than the Dingle Bridge, which is on North Dixie. And the idea is that it benefits the entire community. And I want to thank the Monroe County Board of Commissioners for committing their partnership with this, with a funding of for the match, which was required for the $28 million project. They committed $1 million, in which we are grateful for their partnership as well as their funds. But we appreciate that. The other item, and there's a couple reasons I brought this one forward. We passed it. It was on the most of these are council action. Was the flashing crosswalk protection system. Earlier this evening in our work session, we talked about a lot about our trails. Matt Vanasacker presented updates and where our pedestrian and bicyclist committee is making decisions and recommendations, I should say, to the council. And one of those that came out of there, we've talked about the 3 intersections. So one is on West Elm Avenue at Borges. The other is on North Custer at Veterans Park on Richards Drive. And the third is on East 3rd Street at Kentucky. So you'll have the flashing markers to make it safe pedestrian movement and visibility for the motorists. The other reason I brought this up, because there's the council person that was served on this committee and actually got on the committee because she was a champion within her neighborhood of the need to have a crosswalk and a marking. So we got the marking so they could walk her dog across there and everybody else, and that's Councilwoman Stringham. So she was from the onset for this as far as getting it into the council before she became a council woman. So I thought you might pull it, and if you're not, I sure was going to, because I want to thank her for her diligence and work and how she got here now as a council. She gets to vote on the item that she championed, at least one of these, which was at West Elm Avenue in Borges. So congratulations. So those are my comments for this evening, and Clerk Treasurer Lavoie.
Oh, a lot of really great things happening, so I won't repeat, but I do want to just say that it is a great time of year to remember those that have sacrificed and the sacrifices that have been in the past and in the present, and how we can honor that going forward in the future with all the things we've done this evening and talked about. And I'm sure we'll have comments from some great community leaders as well from the floor. So just a good time of the year for reflection. So
Thank you so much. Manager Robinson?
Further comments? You guys hit all the good ones.
So this time it's citizens' comments. If there's comments which be made by the citizens or those present here this evening, Just please come forward to the microphone, state your name, jurisdiction of residence, and be mindful of the 3 minutes. Any comments from those present here this evening?
Florence Buchanan. I live in Ravenwood, Monroe Township. So this is going to be a challenging conversation because I am chair of the Monroe County Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Panel. And I also serve on the city's bike and ped. And we'll have to say that Matt does a fabulous job. And I also serve on Monroe Charter Township Bike and Ped, which was recently started. And some of the things I wanted to say have already been said by the city manager, some of the councilmen and ladies, and the mayor. That, first of all, let me acknowledge that Dale is on the same team. We're on the same team.
Absolutely.
We just have varying opinions about the process of taking a project and moving it up as a priority. So I've been chair of this committee since 2019, and we've gotten a lot accomplished. And I was going to use the example of La Pleasance Road, which I was part of that process as well, and the mayor spoke about it, I believe so did City Manager Robinson, that and I checked my notes today on my computer, and we probably met 4 or 5 times collaborating before we even applied for the planning grant. It was, the city was well represented, Patrick, city manager, and the mayor. And then we had Al Barron, Monroe Charter Township supervisor, David and Matt from the Road Commission. Long story short, there was a lot of collaboration in deciding what we wanted to do. We invited the railroad companies to come out and take a look at the grading. At the end of the day, those plans have changed. But the point is, we had a plan, and it was a priority for us, and we saw a pathway forward. I'm not so sure that's the case. I respect Dale 1,000% because it would be nice. It's very appealing to have that bridge, okay? But there are other parks in the county that maybe need some attention as well, and they are listed in the recently approved 5-year plan for the county Parks and Recs. But there isn't a priority on any of these projects. They're wonderful projects. I think effective placemaking should be collaborative, particularly in this area. So Dale and I can still talk, but he has a different opinion, I have an opinion. And a team, you have different varying opinions. But I just wanted to say, you know, that to me is, he's passionate and I'm passionate, but we can still talk to one another. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Florence. Other comments from those present here this evening? Seeing no other comments? Motion to adjourn. Councilman Germaine, supported by Councilwoman Strigham to adjourn. Clerk, please call the roll.
Stringham? Yes. Felder? Yes. Hayter? Yes. Stilgrave? Yes. Germaine? Yes. Mayor Clark?
Yes. Well, thank you all for being here this evening.